Well, we're joined now by Dr Monah and Sam Allen, who was afraid to go back for a smear after an uncomfortable first experience. Welcome to both of you. Let's talk about that first experience, because you were 25, weren't you?
Yes.
And it just totally put you off. It was one moment, and yet that was it for you.
At 25, you also think you're quite invincible, and cancer's never going to touch you either. And unfortunately, the experience was really as people imagine it is, when it normally isn't. I just had a nasty experience, and put me off for 10 years.
Nasty experience in what way?
I bled when I had the smear, and of course had lots of things going in my mind, thinking what was wrong with me.
And an unsympathetic nurse.
And the unsympathetic nurse suggested a whole realm of things, which it wasn't. I had a negative smear, so that put me off for 10 years.
Yeah, and 10 years later, you had a nurse that you had quite regularly. You had a relationship with that nurse, so you knew her, you trusted her, and you had finally had that smear. What happened then? What were the results of that?
Thank goodness, so it was the opposite experience of 10 years previously. I did trust her. She went at my pace, and I found out that smear test was not uncomfortable. It wasn't painful. It's just a little bit annoying for 3 minutes. Thank goodness I did, because my results were that I had severe dyskaryosis, which is severe cell changes, that I had to go straight in for colposcopy, and that's when we had a knife cone biopsy and realised I was diagnosed with stage 1 cancer.
Gosh, wow.
And you say your life fell apart then?
Of course it does. I had a busy, fabulous career here in London. I had to take a lot of time off recovering from the operations, but I was one of the lucky ones, because if you catch it early, it's completely easy to fix.
And how
but you
are
said
now?
that if you hadn't had that big gap, then you wouldn't have gone through that in the first place.
I would not have, Philip, no, absolutely not. And if I could tell the Sam from 10 years ago, the invasive experiences I've had to have since I was diagnosed with cancer, I'd be knocking on the GP's door asking for a smear test.
And how are you now?
I am fit, well, 40, getting older, but I've never felt fitter. I've just had my first year pass from the doctor, so I don't have to go back to the hospital till November.
OK, right, Dr Monah, let's speak to you. What is it we're all so afraid of? It's the word smear. We're scared of it. What actually is happening?
I think it's a combination of things. In different age groups, it's different things. Sometimes it's a fear of the unknown. It's not knowing what the smear test is about. It's not understanding the results, not having the information adequately explained or being put at ease when you're actually having the test. I think sometimes it feels very, very rushed, and you know the NHS is obviously quite stretched, and sometimes it can feel like the whole thing is very mechanical and robot-like. I can certainly say that I've worked with lots of very, very good nurses myself, and there is an art to doing it and sort of getting the patient in a state.
When you're young and having your first smear test, it may be the first time you've ever been to a doctor to have anything downstairs looked at before. After you've had children, you're sort of used to it, but that first time, it's your first experience of it, and it's scary. I think the biggest thing is when you realise what it looks like, because you always think smear, you feel like something's being scraped, the cells are being scraped, which makes you think of sort of something scalpel-shaped. It's not. That's the brush, isn't it?
Exactly. It's sort of a kind of a soft plastic brush. It did used to be a spatula, which is a bit more uncomfortable, but for the last, quite a few years now, we've been using these little brushes, and we use something called a speculum, which we just pop into the vagina, open it up to have a little look, and it's very, very quickly done. It's not, necessarily a fun experience, of course, but it's over very quickly, and the whole point is it's preventative. It doesn't pick up cancer cells, but it picks up cells that may then progress, so you can stop things in their track before they get to the dangerous point.
You can expect bleeding. Some people don't, some people do, like what happened to you, but if that does happen, if you're in a smear, nothing to be scared of.
Absolutely not. It's just the mere fact that you're rubbing an area with something which wouldn't necessarily be rubbed anyway.
I thought that everyone was getting, or the women were getting better at taking their heads out of the sand here, because the Jade Goody effect was amazing. She had such an incredible legacy and impact on women having their smear tests. And then we find out that now, memories are very short. Everyone moves on. 1.3 million women didn't go last year.
There's always an excuse, why you can't go. Too busy, too stressed, worried. This is something that's very, very important. It's only once every 3 years to begin with, and then once after every 5 years, once you're over 49. It literally takes a few minutes of your time, and it can actually save your life.
Someone a while ago, when we were talking about this before, said it's not just the responsibility you have a responsibility to your family to look after yourself. It's on the NHS. It's free. Your taxes have paid for it. Get it anyway, because you are responsible for what goes on around you.